Samson, Agonistes, the argument. Samson, made captive, blind, and now in the prison at Gaza, there to labor as in a common workhouse on a festival day, in the general cessation from labor, comes forth into the open air, to a place nigh, somewhat retired, there to sit a while and bemoan his condition, where he happens at length to be visited by certain friends and equals of his tribe, which makes the chorus, who seek to comfort him what they can, then by his old father Manoah, who endeavors the like, and withal tells him his purpose to procure his liberty by ransom. Lastly, that this feast was proclaimed by the Philistines as a day of thanksgiving for their deliverance from the hands of Samson, which yet more troubles him. Manoah then departs to prosecute his endeavor with the Philistine lords for Samson's redemption, who in the meanwhile is visited by other persons, and lastly by a public officer to require his coming to the feast before the lords and people to play or show his strength in their presence. He at first refuses, dismissing the public officer with absolute denial to come. At length, persuaded inwardly that this was from God, he yields to go along with him, who came now the second time with great threatenings to fetch him. The chorus yet remaining on the place, Manoah returns, full of joyful hope, to procure ere long his son's deliverance. In the midst of which discourse an Hebrew comes in haste, confusedly at first, and afterward more distinctly, relating the catastrophe, what Samson had done to the Philistines, and by accident to himself, wherewith the tragedy ends. The scene before the prison in Gaza. Samson. A little onward, lend thy guiding hand to these dark steps a little further on. For yonder bank hath choice of sun or shade, there I am wont to sit, when any chance relieves me from my task of servile toil. Daily in the common prison else enjoined me, where I, a prisoner chained, scarce freely draw the air imprisoned also, close and damp, unwholesome draught. But here I feel amends, the breath of heaven, fresh blowing, pure and sweet, with day spring born, here leave me to respire. This day a solemn feast the people hold to Dagon, their sea idol, and forbid laborious works. Unwillingly this rest their superstition yields me. Hence with leave, retiring from the popular noise, I seek this unfrequented place to find some ease to the body some, none to the mind. From restless thoughts that like a deadly swarm of hornets armed, no sooner found alone, but rush upon me thronging in present times past. What once I was, and what am now. Oh, wherefore was my birth from heaven foretold, twice by an angel, who at last in sight of both my parents, all in flames ascended from off the altar, where an offering burned, as in a fiery column charioting his godlike presence, and from some great act or benefit revealed to Abraham's race. Why was my breeding ordered and prescribed, as of a person separate to God, designed for great exploits, if I must die betrayed, captived, and both my eyes put out, made of my enemies this scorn and gaze, to grind in brazen fetters under task with this heaven-gifted strength? O glorious strength, put to the labor of a beast, debased, lower than bond-slave. Promise was that I should Israel from Philistine yoke deliver. Ask for this great deliverer now, and find him eyeless in Gaza at the mill with slaves, himself in bonds under Philistine yoke. Yet stay, let me not rashly call in doubt divine prediction. What if all foretold had been fulfilled, but through mine own default? Whom have I to complain of but myself? Who this high gift of strength committed to me? In what part lodged? How easily bereft me? Under the seal of silence could not keep, but weakly to a woman must reveal it, or come with importunity and tears. O impotence of mind! In body strong, but what is strength without a double share of wisdom? Vast, unwieldy, burdensome, proudly secure, yet liable to fall by weakest subtleties. Not made to rule, but to subserve where wisdom bears command. God, when he gave me strength to show withal how slight the gift was, hung it in my hair. But peace, I must not quarrel with the will of highest dispensation, which herein haply had ends above my reach to know. Suffices that to me strength is my bane, and proves the source of all my miseries, so many and so huge that each apart would ask a life to wail, but chief of all, O loss of sight, of thee I most complain. Blind among enemies, O worse than chains, dungeon, or beggary, or decrepit age, light the prime work of God to me is extinct, and all her various objects of delight annulled, which might in part my grief have eased, inferior to the vilest now become of man or worm. The vilest here excel me, they creep, yet see I dark and light exposed, to daily fraud, contempt, abuse, and wrong, within doors or without still as a fool, in power of others, never in my own. Scarce half I seem to live, dead more than half. Oh, dark, dark, dark amid the blaze of noon, irrecoverably dark, total eclipse, without all hope of day. O first created beam, and thou great word, let there be light, and light was over all. Why am I thus bereaved thy prime decree? The sun to me is dark, and silent as the moon, when she deserts the night, hid in her vacant interlunar cave. Since light so necessary is to life, and almost life itself, if it be true that light is in the soul, she all in every part, why was the sight to such a tender ball as the eye can find, so obvious and so easy to be quenched, and not as feeling through all parts diffused, that she might look at will through every pore? Then had I not been thus exiled from light, as in the land of darkness yet in light. To live a life half dead, a living death, and buried, but oh yet more miserable, myself my sepulchre, a moving grave, buried yet not exempt by privilege of death and burial from worst of other evils, pains and wrongs, but made hereby obnoxious more to all the miseries of life, life in captivity among inhuman foes. But who are these? For with joint pace I hear the tread of many feet steering this way. Perhaps my enemies, who come to stare at my affliction, and perhaps to insult, their daily practice to afflict me more. Chorus. This is he. Softly awhile, let us not break in upon him. O change beyond report, thought, or belief. See how he lies at random, carelessly diffused, with languished head unpropped, as one past hope, abandoned, and by himself given over, in slavish habit, ill-fitted weeds, o'erworn and soiled. Or do my eyes misrepresent? Can this be he, that heroic, that renowned, irresistible Samson, who unarmed no strength of man or fiercest wild beast could withstand, who tore the lion as the lion tears the kid, ran on embattled armies clad in iron and weaponless himself, made arms ridiculous, useless the forgery of brazen shield and spear, the hammered cuirass, Chalybane, tempered steel, and frock of mail, adamantine proof. But safest he who stood aloof, when insupportably his foot advanced in scorn of their proud arms, and warlike tools, spurned them to death by troops. The bold Ascalonite, Fled from his lion ramp, old warriors turned their plated backs under his heel, or groveling, soiled their crested helmets in the dust. Then with what trivial weapon came to hand? The jaw of a dead ass, his sword of bone. 1,000 foreskins fell. The flower of Palestine, in Ramoth Lehi famous to this day. Then by main force pulled up, and on his shoulders bore the gates of Aza, post and massy bar, up to the hill by Hebron, seat of giants old. No journey of a Sabbath day, and loaded so, like whom the Gentiles feign to bear up heaven. Which shall I first bewail? Thy bondage or lost sight, prison within prison, inseparably dark. Thou art become, O worst imprisonment, the dungeon of thyself. Thy soul, which men enjoying sight oft without cause complain, imprisoned now indeed, in real darkness of the body dwells, shut up from outward light, to incorporate with gloomy night, for inward light, alas, puts forth no visual beam, O mirror of our fickle state. Since man on earth unparalleled, the rarer thy example stands, by how much from the top of wondrous glory, strongest of mortal men, to lowest pitch of abject fortune thou art fallen. For him I reckon not in high estate, whom long descent of birth or the sphere of fortune raises, but thee whose strength, while virtue was her mate, might have subdued the earth, universally crowned with highest praises.